What kind of CPS workers questions a child? Why would my son make that up?
Hey guys, good morning. Today we're having a lazy Sunday, but we're not too lazy to investigate why this lady got her kids taken from CPS. So this mom got on TikTok and started talking all this crap about CPS and all the things that they're doing wrong and that they took her 4 or 5 kids, because of course it's always a gaggle of kids. So she's on part like 5 or 6 of why CPS got her effed up. When these videos start to go viral and people start reacting to this, talking about, well, what did you do?
What did you do?
Oh, just a little something called DUI and 4 counts of child neglect.
I'm doing this to gain exposure for how CPS really treats families. Basically, when I was in jail, the CPS worker came to visit me. They asked me if I would like my kids to attend my court date, and I said no. And what did they do? They brought my kids to my court date anyways. So what was the point of asking me? They give me a...
The CPS worker is not in charge of whether or not the kids are brought to the court date. They can ask your input, and that is weighed when the judge is making that decision. So that's why they asked you. They asked you so that they could tell the judge the mother does not want the children here. But the judge may deem that it's so necessary for the children to be there because they probably had to testify against you because you were fighting the charges. She goes on to say she went to trial, which means she did not accept a plea deal. So had you accepted a plea deal, this is conjecture, of course, but it's based on the facts that she's giving us, they would not have had to have been brought to court.
A report that's filled with bullshit that is not true. I get out of jail, look through my phone, and I have a voicemail from my oldest son, and my kids are screaming and crying in the background. And I would just like to add in, when all of this first happened, my oldest son's grandma was willing to take all of my children the day my CPS case opened, and they said no, that she could not take them because she was not blood related to my other kids. I got out of jail on March 12th, and I went in there and reported this to him on March 14th. My older son...
So she was probably lying to you, the grandmother. The grandmother probably didn't want to take all 4 of your kids and she felt bad. But she probably did not pass a background check, because you can take in kids if you're a relative of one of their siblings. I have direct experience with this. So my oldest son's father, he had 2 more children after our son was born before he got sober. We're both in recovery, but he took 2 more years to get into recovery than I did. And during that time, he had 2 kids with his girlfriend. They're still together and both sober, so I'm not trying to bash them. But both of those kids were taken into foster care, and I was one of the first people that was asked if I wanted to be placement for the first one, because I'm the mother of one of that child's siblings. And you could say like, well, different states have different... This girl's in California and so am I. So that's not true. Her oldest kid is 10 years old. So the oldest kid called you and was crying and leaving you he's traumatized. He misses his mommy. No matter what's going on, he misses his mommy and he's in a strange house. So that is not abnormal for your kid to call you crying. I know that that's distressing to you, but that doesn't mean that they're being abused. They were in fact being abused under your care, but we'll get into that.
I had an iPhone at the time, and I couldn't be in contact with my kids because there was a restraining order, but his grandmother were trying to get a hold of him, and then all of a sudden he stopped answering the phone, and he was messaging my girlfriend, he was messaging my mom, he was messaging his grandmother, saying that the lady doesn't allow them to play with toys, that she locks them in the room all day, and she would take his phone. So eventually, my son stopped calling anybody and stopped texting. So of course, we were concerned. Every visit that I had with my kids, my older son would say, "Mom, what's going on? Why are we still in this house? Can you talk to him, please? Can you ask him?" So I said in the meeting with the CPS investigator, I said, she's not allowing my kids to play with toys. She's locking them in the room after they get home from school. And do you know what he told me? He said, "I've been to that house before. There's plenty of toys there for them to play with." And I was like, that doesn't mean that it's true. that she's a
Just because your 10-year-old said that she's not letting them play with toys doesn't mean that she's never allowing them to play with toys. She probably just told them when it was time to put the toys away. I can't believe that this lady is making me defend CPS and foster care because I don't think highly of those systems, but come on. They're being locked in the room. That's something that you could report to your caseworker and they can look into it. But in all honesty, he's probably exaggerating how bad it is there because he really wants to go home and misses you. That's not uncommon. And as far as him having an iPhone at 10 years old, that's insane already. But it is not common for them to allow 10-year-olds who have iPhones in foster care. It's actually quite normal that they would take that phone from him.
allowing them to play with toys. And do you know what his response was to me? That doesn't mean that your son is telling the truth. What kind of CPS workers questions a child? Why would my son make that up? Why? CPS claims that they're there for the children. They're trying to protect the children. So is it only specific children? Because I don't understand. The main reason why I am making these videos is because my 5-year-old...
What kind of CPS worker questions a child? Every CPS worker, that's their job, is to ask them questions. Just automatically believe them when they say, I'm not allowed to play with toys. That's not abuse anyways.
Because my 5-year-old was 5150'd. And it just so happened to be a weird coincidence that I was asked if I would be willing to put my son on medication because of his behaviors, when I had told them no, that I was not okay with medicating my son. All of a sudden, the next day, he's hospitalized, 5150, getting medicated against my will and his. My son was 5150. My 5-year-old child was 5150 because of CPS.
That actually makes complete sense. So this 5-year-old who was already traumatized before he went into foster care, and I'm about to tell you what she did to get them there, is now having a further traumatization where he's being taken away from the home that he knows. So he's exhibiting scary behavior, whatever that is. So they go to you and ask you, well, can we give him medication? Because getting your approval is the quickest way that they can get him some help. You said no, so the behavior is going to continue. And then whatever he did, whether he was threatening against himself or against other people, they had to hospitalize him for his mental health. That is not a conspiracy. That is just a progression of events.
And don't get me wrong, I will 100% take accountability for why my kids are even in the system. I crashed my car into a tree. My kids were at home asleep. I told the cops that my kids were at home. The cops were knocking on my door for 30 minutes and they woke up my baby.
This lady left her 4 kids home alone so she could go drinking at the bar. The kids' ages are, the oldest one is 10 and the youngest one is 1.
And she left all those kids there at home by themselves.
She went out to the bar and got drunk and drove home, and on her way home she crashed into a tree. They got to the house, there was pill bottles within arm's reach, there was a knife within arm's reach, and there was not enough food in the house. That is what is all in the report. Now, she says she understands that what she did was wrong, but she continues to make excuses throughout her videos, talking about how, well, there's no law that says a 10-year-old can't babysit, and I had cameras, and I taught him how to call 911. But if a fire started while they were all asleep, just because you told him before what to do in a fire doesn't mean a 10-year-old's mind is going to understand in the moment exactly what to do and rescue all his siblings. The baby could choke. Literally anything could happen to them, and a 10-year-old should not be caring for a baby and 2 other younger siblings.
Baby. And now CPS is trying to say that they're not going to give me my kids back because they're out of control. And their excuse for why they haven't upped my visitation is because, oh, you can't control them within those 2 hours, so why would we give you more time? My kids are acting up because you are not allowing them to see their mother. I have been with my kids ever since the day that they were born. I was in an abusive relationship with their father for 6 years, and I'm currently 2 years free, and my kids have not spent a night away from me. And I know a lot of people are probably wondering why my kids got taken by CPS in the first place. And I truly believe that there's not enough videos out there explaining to parents what they can do to help themselves in CPS cases.
Yes, there is. There's plenty of educational videos for free on YouTube. You could Google it. You could go to a free family law places. There's absolutely enough videos out there. I mean, sure, there can always be more. There's nothing wrong with adding more information on what to do when CPS comes into your life. But the fact of the matter is, you agree to work your services and you comply with literally everything they say. She goes on to say later that she has not taken a parenting class yet, even though it's been months and months and months, because they're not giving her the parenting class. Girl, go take a parenting class. I've taken 2 parenting classes when I was not court ordered to do that. Just go find one. And then next time you go to court, you could be like, these are the things I'm doing on my time. Mind you, you were in an alcohol related issue.
Go to AA.
I don't care what you think about AA, and you may not even be wrong, but AA is free, and you could be proactive by just going to a few meetings every week, and you go to the person who's leading that meeting, and you can get a slip, you can get a note. If you show up every day, if you show up multiple times a week for months on end and participate and stay sober, there's people in AA that can verify that. You don't need CPS to hold your hand and walk you into where you need to be.
But from my experience seeing the other parents, a lot of parents don't give about their kids, but I care about my kids, and I will fight for my kids till I have them all back home with me. I think a lot of parents are probably ashamed or feel bad about what they did. Yes, I feel bad. I regret my decision that I made every single day, and I will regret it for the rest of my life, but I'm taking accountability for what I did, and I'm doing everything that is asked of me and more, and it's still not good enough for CPS. So on March 9th, the 2-year anniversary of when my ex broke my nose, I decided to go out to a bar and drink. On my way home, I left to the bar like at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. My thinking in my head, my kids sleep all through the night. I have a camera to watch them. They're asleep. I'm only going to be gone for 2 or 3 hours and come back home. Yes, I know now that that is wrong. And if you're wondering how old my kids are, I have a 10-year-old, I have a 5-year-old, I have a 4-year-old, and I have a 1-year-old. And my 10-year-old liked to stay up and play video games. So I thought in my mind, I was only imagining being away from home for a couple hours and then coming back home. On my way home, I crashed my car into a tree. I told the cops that my kids were at home. I didn't have a support system. Yes, I could have probably found a babysitter, but I was more comfortable with their older brother watching them. I taught him how to call 911 in case if there was an emergency. I told him if there was a fire, what he should do. So I ended up getting charged with a DUI and 4 counts of child neglect because I have 4 kids. And in Santa Clara County, 3 misdemeanors turned into like a felony. It ended up turning into a felony, but I went to court, went to trial, and got those 4 charges dropped and only got charged with the DUI. And
just because the criminal aspect drops the child neglect doesn't mean that CPS has to drop the child neglect. So she's acting like, oh, because those aspects were dropped criminally. First of all, you're lucky. You're lucky. And it's probably because it's the first time you ever got in trouble. But that doesn't mean that CPS has to forget the fact that you did do that. You did leave them home alone. Not only that, she says in another video that CPS has been in and out of her life and that she has 3 different baby daddies. So 4 or 5 kids with 3 different men. And every single one of those men have been abusive to her. And she said in another video that she was in a 6-year abusive relationship. So you were just letting a man abuse you for 6 years in the same house with your kids. Now, I know that there's a whole trauma bond and it's hard to leave and it's scary to leave and this, that, and the other, but that doesn't absolve you of responsibility as far as protecting your children. And CPS does not take that lightly, that you are being abused in the home where your children are. The way she talks about it as if that's not her fault. Nothing is ever her fault. Everything happens to her.
In the report, they tried to deem my house as unsafe because there was a kitchen knife up on the kitchen counter. There was pill bottles. I think one was in the living room and one was in the kitchen. Childproof, okay? And I had a toolbox on the floor in my room. And my house was messy because we were in the middle of moving. And I showed my public defender proof from the housing authority that I was moving. And they tried to say that my fridge was empty, which I have pictures and receipts. I even showed my public defender that I had just spent $140 on groceries the day my CPS case opened. My fridge looked empty because it was the beginning of the month. And yes, I get food stamps. So I empty out my fridge every time before I get my food stamps, before I go grocery shopping. I empty it out with all the old food and put new food in.
So your fridge wasn't empty because you just spent $140 on groceries, or it was empty because you had just cleaned it out? You're contradicting yourself.
Sat up on this app and said that you have no shame. Mind you, she has a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 10-year-old. Not only did CPS take your children away because you left them at home alone, went to the bar and got drunk and then crashed into a tree, but because also you left them at home with nothing to eat. So when the cops pulled her over and she told them that her children were at home alone and the cops went there, they seen that she had no food inside of her fridge. So not only did you leave them at home alone, but you left them at home alone with nothing to eat. 4 hours while you were at the bar getting drunk. And then you have the nerve to say that CPS is tearing and separating your family apart. You not only sat there and thought it was a good idea, but you actually got in your car, left them at home, and then did not feed them for hours. And now you're playing victim. You left your children at home alone. CP is doing their job. In this case, CP is needed. You're not a victim.
That last reaction video to this lady's story, I fully agree with everything she said. You're playing the victim when your kids are the victim of your behavior and your choices.
I want to respond to this comment real quick. It's a legal age for a 10-year-old to be watching their siblings. One, I would just like to say there's no California state law on how old your child has to be. Talking with cops after now about this situation, they recommend 12, the age of 12. But the whole reason why I'm doing this is to help other parents, to spread the knowledge of
Help other parents. You can't even help yourself. You need to focus on yourself. And I understand venting or just trying to process these emotions are probably very hard. But she has a lot of defensiveness inside, which tells me, in my opinion, that she does not fully take responsibility and she doesn't think that her kids should have been taken from her. We already knew not to leave our 10-year-olds and younger home alone to go get drunk at the bar and then get a DUI. Ugh. I'm doing this so other mothers know. We know. Thanks, though. So this former CPS worker in a different state, Ohio, she made a response video to Miss DUI mom over here that I thought was actually very insightful.
You don't know me, I don't know you. Watching your videos, I stopped at the parent classes videos. It seems like you need a little bit of help and guidance. Who am I? A rando, but I used to work for CPS in Ohio. I don't want to chastise you for anything that you have done, but I'm going to be blunt. One mom to another. So starting from the beginning, they should have never brought those kids to that court date unless they were testifying. You're absolutely right. The only time that we would ever bring a kid to a case or to court is if they were testifying in SA or firsthand with the house look like. We would try to interview them one time in a recorded room so they did not have to testify, because that's traumatic for kids and they shouldn't be doing that. Blood relation for relatives or friends does not matter. As long as that person can pass a home study, drug test, have no history with CPS that is substantiated, which means that there was enough proof to prove that abuse or neglect happened, and they have a relationship with that kid's familiar with them, they should have been able to take them. The whole point is to ensure that the kids' lives are not being disrupted. That's the entire point of placing kids. As far as the kids in foster care not having phones, they're typically not allowed to have phones. It does cause problems. I will say that. It's unfortunate that your kids are going through that, and I'm glad that the two are out of that, and unfortunately the other two are not. But because you had a restraining order, but any other time that a kid is in foster care, all contact has to be supervised. The main thing is making sure that the kids and the parents are not talking about the case. The kids don't need to know about the case. And I say that as they don't need to be going to school wondering about it, if that makes sense. Yes, they have a right to know when they're coming home, but that shouldn't be the main conversation. That shouldn't be the only thing that you guys are talking about. You guys need to be talking about how school was, how your day was, stuff like that, normal stuff. I don't know if the 5150 was because of CPS. I don't know if your 5-year-old said something that was either homicidal or, but also we call it a pink slip over in Ohio, or EMS we do. 5150 is usually when an adult is unable to, basically the state takes custody of an adult. So that could be because of homicidal thoughts, actions, or thoughts and actions. As far as minors being pink slipped or 5150, they probably got hospitalized for mental health. That might be what it was, but I wasn't there. So they didn't get removed for the DUI. They got removed because no one was home with them. If you had a DUI and someone was at home with them, I could probably tell you that CPS would have gotten involved and would have wanted you to do parenting classes and an alcohol and drug assessment, mental health assessment, all that stuff, and follow up. If this is your first run-in with them, if it's not your first run-in with them, then it's like a continuous cycle, then they probably would have been removed. But they got removed because
Yes, she did say in another one of her videos that CPS has been in and out of her life previously because of DV and drinking issues.
no one was home to supervise them. I know they're your kids, however, they're technically in the state's custody. So you're doing the right thing by keeping open communication, but you should have rescheduled your visits. You should have said, this trial is supposed to take 2 weeks. My trial dates are Mondays and Wednesdays. Can we do Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever? There should be some.
That was another thing. So DUI mom said in one of her videos that when she went to trial for what she had done, her crimes, she also had during that same time scheduled visitation with her kids, and that they didn't reschedule her visits for you. But it's your job to contact everybody over and over and over again until you get your visits rescheduled.
Places that can do weekends too. You should have rescheduled them. You should have been notified about a family team meeting. I'm assuming that's what your CFT was or whatever, to go over what needs to be in the case plan. You have to agree to it. If you don't agree to it, then they have a whole, it's not a trial, but they basically put the caseworker on stand, and if you want to testify, all that stuff. It's usually signed by the judge, the parents, and the agency. I'm gonna get a little more blunt. CPS makes a case plan. It's supposed to be with your help on what you feel that you need to do to get the kids back. You follow the case plan, you get the kids back. End of story. In your case, it'd probably be parenting classes, AOD assessment, mental health assessment, follow up with those. And from the sounds of it, something about your house, that it's not good enough for CPS. No, it's not good enough for your kids. Everything that you need to be doing is for your kids, period. If you had a camera to watch them while you were out, what if they choked? Can you give CPR over the camera? No, you cannot. Calling 911 is a lot different than actually being put in that situation. A lot of kids have, well, everyone has fight or flight. They're gonna stay and fight or they're gonna run. Not a lot of kids can understand the concept of a fire, especially a 4 and 1-year-old. It's not the fact that you were gone for 2 to 3 hours, because I agree with you. Ohio doesn't even have a law on how long a kid can stay home alone. It's the fact that they know how to take care of themselves and they know what to do in an emergency. It's the fact that they were unsupervised. You went out drinking. Even if you came home drunk that night, you still would have had an inability to take care of them adequately. You're parentifying your child, your 10-year-old. Parentified, I don't know if you've heard this term, a child forced into adult responsibilities, either practically or emotionally, when parents are unable to fulfill their parental roles due to illness, addiction, or other issues. This increases anxiety, depression, difficulty with relationships in adulthood, and loss of childhood. You cannot be putting your 10-year-old in adult situations. This is why they don't want kids worrying about what's going on with the case. The whole knife thing, I think they were reaching a little bit. It should have been put away. The pill bottles, they should have been put up. Other than that, that's really all I have for you. I really hope this didn't come off as crappy. I'm really trying to be helpful. Also, start recording your conversations over the phone. Start recording them and bring them. If you have an attorney, give them to your attorney and they can file motions.
There's a lot of people commenting saying that there's more to the story, and paint the picture you want, because I know that I'm a good mother and I am active in my community, and I do outdoor activities with my children, and other parents have seen the type of parent that I am. I've gotten stopped in grocery stores before and complimented on how patient I am with my children and how they wish they had a mother like me.
Yeah, I don't believe that happened. I don't think anybody stopped you in the grocery store and was like, "Excuse me, ma'am, I wish I had a mother like you. You are so patient with them." Well, if that happened, let's say that happened, they must have been acting real bad and you must have been real patient for someone to be like, "Oh, this moment needed patience," and that must have been hard to give patience. But whatever, I digress. The main point is, just because you were a really good mom in the grocery store one time doesn't mean that you're overall a good mom or a safe mom right now.
So you can try to paint out this picture that I'm a horrible mother, but I know that I'm not. And I could just tell by The other parents that I see in the visitation with the CPS, there's a lot of them in there that don't care about their kids.
Just because you see worse parents doesn't mean that you're a good one right now. Because what you did was really neglectful and dangerous, and you're so defensive about it still. And she makes videos talking about how the addict parents don't care about their kids. These, parents that are strung out and they're not showing up for their kids. And they do, but they're strung. Look, I'm in recovery, so I understand it's not that you don't love your kids, but you are choosing the addiction over your kids. And I get that that's worse in some aspects, but you are a hop, skip, and a jump away from that because you have addict tendencies as well. You chose drinking at the bar over being home and making sure your kids were safe that night. And alcohol is not better than substances. If you're abusing it, you're just as dangerous.
Are actively using, and I was wrong. And I don't know how many times I have to say that I was wrong and that I'm taking accountability. I had 6 years under my belt, so it's no problem for me to stay sober. All of my drug tests have been clean. I don't think that it's fair for people to say that because I made one mistake that I don't deserve my kids.
I wanted to point out one more thing. She keeps saying, just because I made one mistake, why should this be happening to me? She said right here in the comment section, she acknowledges that wasn't the only time she left her kids home alone. So you didn't make one mistake. You got caught one time, and you still don't think leaving the kids home alone was the mistake. You think that the mistake was the DUI, but it's the whole scenario. So someone says, don't act like that's the first time you ever left your kids home alone. And she says, I never said it was. So it's not one mistake.
And I think that's why I decided to post my story, because this is not talked about enough.
Let me know what you guys thought of this story in the comments, and thanks for watching.